Just to introduce myself, I'm Jackson. I'm the engagement manager with Elevate Indy. And here at Elevate, we have a mission of building long-term life-changing relationships with Indianapolis youth, equipping them to thrive and contribute to their community. And just kind of one of the ways that we, want to do that is kind of just bring awareness to, what does that mean to really see youth be thriving and contributing? And so we believe as an organization that the work of serving urban youth cannot be done single-handedly. We are not the savior, so to speak. We're not the only people on the block. And so we understand that we only exist in collaboration. So we brought some great guests here that we work very closely with to kind of just talk about this idea of moving from Band-Aids to solutions. And so I want to hand it off to my colleague, Mr. Adam Johnson. He's our Chief Relationship Officer at Elevate Indy. He's been with Elevate for a little over 4 years now in his role, and he's also served as a teacher mentor in the schools and just has a really good understanding of kind of this work. So I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you all for being here. As Jackson stated, my name is Adam Johnson, and I am the Chief Relationship Officer for Elevate Indy. Our discussion and topic for this roundtable today is one I think that's not often discussed and addressed, but definitely is worthy of a discussion. And it's post-secondary readiness for students living in under-resourced communities. And so what I like to do is, before we introduce the panelists today, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. I'm sure we have some more coming in. There's also another question I want to pose to you all. Definitely feel free to use the chat today to ask any questions that you may have. We may not be able to get to all those questions or any of the questions today for that matter. But as Jackson stated, this session is being recorded, and we will take note of those questions and provide answers for them to the best of our abilities and forward them out to you all to help answer some of those questions, concerns, and thoughts you may have from today's session. But another question we have for today is your high school mascot. What was or is your high school mascot? If you could place that in the chat, greatly appreciate it. I think it's very interesting and always interesting to see the different mascots that are out there at the high school level, and even some of the history around those mascots, I think is very interesting as well. And I will start with mine in the chat as well. I'll share mine. I have the fabulous, the wonderful, the best mascot in all of Indiana. Probably, I'm looking at Dr. Jackson over there. He's like, the Arlington Golden Knights in the house. So ours was the Golden Knights. Yes, a proud Golden Knight I am indeed. So please, if you would, place in the chat your high school mascot. Scottish Highlanders, Bulldog. Now, Cougars and Blue. That is interesting. Now that Cougars and Blue Blazers, that may be worth looking into. So as you all continue to place your answers in the chat, we're going to start with our panelists introducing themselves today. We have a group of 5 superb panelists today, and I'm going to start with you, Greg. Greg, if you could please introduce yourself to the 40, 50 plus individuals here joining us today, a little bit about yourself, what you do, why you're here today, and what is your high school mascot?
Would love to. Thank you, Adam. And I just want to first lead off by saying that it's a privilege and pleasure to be here. So thank you and Jackson for making this opportunity available and for my invitation. So I work with the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. Many on the call might be familiar with us already, but we do a number of things. Some of our biggest focuses are we're a coordinating body for public higher education in the state of Indiana. And probably what we're most well known for is administering the state's financial aid program. So we are actually 5th in the nation and 1st in the Midwest in the amount of financial aid that we provide to Hoosier students. So we're very proud about that. I want to talk about that as much as possible. But we've got about $400 million that we are able to provide students each year, predominantly through the 21st Century Scholars Program, as well as the Franco-Bannon Grant. So I have the privilege of serving as our Director of Legislation and Program Implementation, and have been with the Commission about 7 years. So, very connected with several, folks on this panel and on the call too. So excited to see everybody here. And my mascot at Bedford North Lawrence High School, we were the Stars.
And Yasina.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you all this afternoon. I am a senior program officer at the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust, but my professional background is really in post-secondary access and success and workforce pathways. So I spent a long time working in higher education with TRIO programs, Upward Bound, which is a college preparation program for high school students who are income eligible and first generation in their family to go to school, and then also in the nonprofit space with different efforts focused on increasing success for underrepresented populations, including helping to stand up Indy Achieves here in the city of Indianapolis. So my high school mascot, I posted in the chat as well. When I was there, they were the Northside Redskins. I went to Northside High School in Fort Wayne, and now they've since changed their name, thankfully, to the Legends. So
Awesome. Mr. Jacob.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. Jacob Pactor, currently serving as principal at Purdue Polytechnic High School in Englewood on the east side of Indianapolis. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. 550 kids at PPHS, grades 9 through 12. Greg, while you were talking, I was trying to, we notified our 2 commencement speakers today. If I was wanting to see if either one of them were 21st Century Scholars, but they are not. But they're both going to 2 very different colleges and very different backgrounds. So I'm here to talk about kind of like the amalgamation of what it's like to work in a high school right now and supporting kids who are going to college, kids who are going to go straight into the workforce, and kids who are going to join the military, to give Mel a setup right there nicely what you might be talking about. Previously, before here, I was assistant principal at Shortridge High School in IPS.
And your mascot.
North Central High School, the Panthers. I will not sing you the fight song, but I have it memorized.
I almost asked for fight songs, but I did not. But I don't know mine, so I was like, I don't want to put anyone out there on the spot. But our next panelist may know his. I'm quite sure he knows his.
Hello, everybody. Leon Jackson. I serve as the chancellor for St. Joseph's College. We are one of the 3 campuses for Marian University. We are what we call an earn and learn college. So our students both work and go to school. Each of our students earns $25,000 from one of our employer partners that allows them to pay for school, pay for tuition. That also includes all their books, all their fees, laptop, and meal plan. We've had a lot of success in about 1.5 years, and really excited about what the future holds and how we uniquely show up to the market. Mascot, of course, I'm a Tech Titan. I love my IPS, so I ain't gonna say nothing bad about Mr. Johnson's school, but there's a reason he doesn't know his fight songs, probably because they wrote it down. And we know about Arlington kids.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. And last but not least, Mel. Hello, Mel.
Hi, Adam. Hey, everybody. Mel Coryell, Executive Director of Postsecondary Readiness for Indianapolis Public Schools. Happy to see at least 3 IPS grads in this space. On the IPS Postsecondary Readiness team, we work to ensure that all students in IPS have thanks for setting this up, Jacob, have chosen their E as their status for their next step when they leave IPS, that is enrollment, employment, or enlistment, and that they're set on a good path to a fulfilling life of their choosing that allows them to have a career and make a living wage. So those are our goals and why we are here. My mascot is the Kokomo Wildcats. That's Wildcats with a K, because that's how they do it in Kokomo. I do know the fight song, Onward Kokomo, Dear Old Red and Blue. I won't go on, but I'm happy to be here with all of you and to talk about how we're preparing our students for the next steps.
Great. I thank each of you being here, as well as everyone that's tuned in. So let's jump right in. When we talk about post-secondary readiness, I think the first thing we have to do is kind of define what truly is post-secondary readiness. And I believe there to be a distinction between post-secondary readiness and post-secondary success. So I would ask each of you to maybe give a short definition from your perspective, what truly is post-secondary readiness. By all means, let's go.
Does anybody jump in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would define post-second readiness really as kind of this, more so the skills around the soft skills, especially in the space where we are at St. Joe. They call them soft, but they're actually kind of hard skills, but and essential skills. But the students that we are seeing today coming to college are not ready academically or socially, emotionally in a lot of cases. And that's, impacts from COVID, impacts from social media and all these other things that they have going on. But for us, we kind of pride ourselves on being able to take a student basically credit-wise, academic achievement-wise, and almost maturity-wise from a sophomore in high school to a junior in college. That's kind of what our charge is, and I know it's a big expectation in the 2-year period, but a lot of these young people are coming and they're not academically ready because of all the kind of workarounds with transcripts and grades and things like that. So we just want a young person who's committed to being able to do the work, who's going to show up. I mean, we can give them all the other things, but when I think of, post-secondary ready, does he have the work or she have the work ethic that'll allow her to be successful? The ability to be resilient and agile, because those are the things that are really going to make the difference in the classroom.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. It's I think a combination of attributes and skills that we've developed in our students and the doors that we've opened or kept open, that we've supported them in keeping open as they matriculate. So in addition to the things that Leon listed, I would say we want our students to know how to use resources to navigate unknown territory, because we know that they're going to have to be ready for things they've never faced before, and they're going there without the supports of high school. And we want to have reached out, to have connected them to their next step so that they are ready to take that step. And then I would say also, when it comes to opening doors or keeping doors open, if they qualify for 21st Century Scholarship, they need to have applied in 8th grade. They need to have completed their Scholar Track activities so that they can access those scholarships if their choice is college. If their choice is career, they need to have, attended our JA Ignite jobs fair, met with employers. They need to know how to have a resume and go into an interview and do all of those things. And so it's a collection, I think, of both attributes and open doors and, sometimes it's checking the boxes, right? To Leon's point, like they need to have earned their high school diploma, which means they need to have completed the coursework for their high school diploma.
I think what makes this a great question is that all of us will give very different answers based on the kind of roles and lenses that we wear. So my simple answer is that I want a kid when they graduate from high school to have a sense of what they want to do next. That's an idea of being post-secondary ready. What makes that complicated is that there's so many other things pushing and pulling on kids, sometimes outside of the kids' control, family, college, whatever's going on, financial pieces, documentation status, whether they can qualify or feel that they can qualify and complete the FAFSA. I think it would be great if, like, Greg and the commission would, say every kid was, it would be great if we could have a quantitative answer to this, right? But the answer that really lies we can't, because when a kid graduates high school and post-secondary ready, they might not be ready for that next thing until they're 20, 3 years after high school. And so what I don't want, I don't think, I'll just speak for myself, I don't want as a kid to go from here to college because they think they have to do it and then drop out with $30,000 in debt. That's not being post-secondary ready. But as we think about how we measure it, right, it's we measure what is easy. But at the end of the day, when that kid walks across a high school stage and our kind of daily relationship with them is done, does this kid have a sense of what they want to do next? And do they have some resources, both in terms of tools in their toolkit and people who they can rely on to be successful in the future?
Both Greg and Yasin, if you could as well, and then I have a follow-up question for you all.
Okay. Yesenia, do you want to lead off and I'll follow?
Sure. Yeah. So in the sense of just adding, to what everyone else has said, just understanding the options that are ahead of them. I think we know that once you graduate high school, you have a variety of different options that you can decide to take, and understanding the risk and the rewards, and being willing to learn and be open to new experiences, I think, is a critical thing. But then also knowing that it's okay to change your mind. I think so many times we say to students, like, oh, you have to have this firm decision and that's what you have to do. And I agree that as Jacob said, you don't want to make a decision to go to school, end up in a lot of debt, and not finish your degree. So if you have another option that makes more sense at that time, given the opportunities that you have, it's just knowing how to weigh those choices and those decisions. In relation to something that I think is critical that we don't often talk about is the support network, being able to build a supportive network of people, because I think Mel mentioned this, that in high school you have that network of teachers, friends, counselors, other individuals who are there and who are a supportive backbone to a lot of your decision making. But once you get past that, a lot of people don't have that in their family. They don't have that already built in support network. So being able to identify individuals who can be that support network is critical to post-secondary success as well.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. Maybe the only thing that I'll add is that I think this is a really good question. And oftentimes when we're talking with families and students as practitioners, I think that, we might just be talking really briefly about, you need to be college ready, you need to be college ready, but we leave that sort of amorphous and nebulous. And I think what it takes is to go a little bit deeper. So, understanding that all students, as a few have mentioned, are unique individuals, and there are literally thousands of pathways and opportunities that students can pursue in the forms of education and training beyond high school. So whether that's a bachelor's degree, 2-year degree, certificate, certification, the military, just helping students understand all of those different choices, I think, as Mel alluded to, is critical. And to Jacob's point, some of these things, especially the soft skills that Dr. Jackson mentioned, can be a little bit difficult to quantify and document. But I think that there are a few frameworks that we can really lean on for that. One of which that I'll point to and was mentioned before is the Scholar Success Program. So that is a requisite for 21st century scholars in order for them to earn their award for college while they're in high school. And so what we have are activities that they complete that are grade level specific, that really build upon each other sequentially during that time in high school, leading off with a graduation plan, which is really helping them understand, how do I get from point A, which is where I am now, to point B, which is whatever my aspiration is behind or beyond graduation. So coming up with that plan early on, and then really building off that. So there are career focused activities, whether that be a career interest assessment, gaining workplace experience, job shadowing. Those are also requisites of our students. And then later on, things such as filing the FAFSA and completing a college entrance exam are really important milestones. So that is a requirement for 21st Century Scholars, but I do want to emphasize that that program is open to any Hoosier students. So we get a lot of schools who are very excited about that for 21st Century Scholars, but are interested in exploring that opportunity for other students who might not necessarily be in the program. And we're able to say, hey, this is actually possible. And so that's one area. The other thing that I'd mention is back in December of 2017, the State Board of Education, alongside the Department of Education, created graduation pathways or grad pathways. So our class of 2023, so current seniors, are the first ones to come through that, where in terms of being ready for whatever is beyond high school, it's not just a high school diploma by which we're measuring. We're also looking at employability skills as well as post-secondary competencies too. So those are a few frameworks. There are other things out, but I think really exploring individual interests and passions with our students as we're having these key conversations throughout high school are critically important.
That's great. Appreciate all of your responses and kind of level setting it on defining what post-secondary readiness is. With that, I want to draw in a point concerning the support network. So if I can get maybe a couple of you that are more in relationships with students and parents, I'm wondering and curious to know if you find that students and parents have a different definition of what post-secondary readiness is, as opposed to maybe how we may define post-secondary readiness. And if that is a barrier in and of itself, and also maybe what other barriers may exist in helping students be prepared for life after high school.
Well, it's hard to plan for something that you have no vision for. So I think, and that sounds like I'm coming from a deficit mindset. I'm not, but a student's family every family has a different view of what jobs make someone successful, whether or not college is a good idea. They don't necessarily have a sightline to what the data tell us right now about jobs in Indiana and which ones students are likely to be able to earn a living wage at, and what going to that job every day looks like. And so we speak in terms of exposure, exploration, and experience. And so as a school district, we take on the role of getting students access to seeing more of those working workspaces. We also need to do that work with parents. Parents can be champions who move students forward towards their dreams. They can also be impediments at times. There's also the really complicated, what should we call it? Like the family dynamic, maybe. I'm a first generation college student myself. My family wanted for me to go forth and be successful, and they believed that education was a way to do that. But my dad was a steel worker and my mom was a school bus driver. And so they, as I, moved into academia and got advanced degrees, to their minds, that made me very, very different from them. And so our students face not just this need for their families to be on board with, what their career choice is, but also to be able to manage the change that comes when their students do something that's very, very different from what they themselves have experienced. And so I think that's probably like a pretty complicated answer to your question, Adam. But I mean, what we have to do is, again, provide information, provide communication, and provide support for our students so they can see those many opportunities, and so that not just they see them, but also their families can see them.
That's great. What about Dr. Jackson? Could I have you chime in on that as it pertains to families? Because you're working with older adults, you're working with young adults and families as well. I'm sure. Then, do the families have a different view of what, and then those students, older students, have a different view of what post-secondary readiness looks like versus how we may approach post-secondary readiness?
I think that it is. You know, what we find is they almost see it as an extension of high school. And as a result, you know, they carry over similar practices, you know, where the parent thinks they can, you know, come to the college and say, hey, I need to see their grades or what's going on with him or her. And it's like, well, you have to sign a whole waiver for me to even talk to you about this. You know, they're adults. They need to own this process. They need to own this experience. And, you know, if they don't want you to know what they have going on, there's nothing I can do to force them to do that. So helping parents make that shift, also helping students make the shift where, again, I'm not, you know, we're not going to necessarily be on you about attendance. We're not going to necessarily be on you about, you know, turning in your work, right? Now our model is a little bit different in that our faculty and staff are required to also mentor and support the student beyond the classroom. But in traditional higher ed, you're seeing that, and you're seeing that faculty and administrators are challenged because they're like, you know, how do I support this kid or this student, and you know, how do I help the parent learn to kind of let go? And that's really one of the biggest things in the transition is students taking ownership and parents kind of letting go. Now, I don't know that it was, you know, it's changed much because, you know, if you're an engaged parent, like, you know, a lot of parents are, it ends up being, you know, something that you find yourself doing, right? You want the best for your student. So you're going to push and ask, you know, try to ask questions that they don't know. But, you know, for the most part, that's the biggest, you know, difference. Now, the workforce component, which is, again, another big piece of what we do here at St. Joe, we have to help change the student's mind frame of, you know, hey, I don't like this job, so I'm not going to go. Or I'm going to quit this job because I don't like my supervisor. I'll just go get another job. So that part becomes, you know, a little more, you know, that you know, we really have to help them unlearn a lot of behaviors and attitudes. And that's some of the harder, those are some of the more challenging conversations, especially to have with parents. Because, you know, in a lot of cases, some of our students are this is the first job they've ever had, right? And you're placing them at One America, or you're placing them at Republic Airways, or you're placing them at Lilly. And, you know, students are like, hey, you know, my boss isn't, you know, I called off, you know, this morning because I wasn't feeling good. It's like, well, you know, you can't always just call off because you don't feel like going to work. Right. I wish that was the case because, you know, I probably wouldn't be here most days. But no, I'm joking. I actually love my job. But, you know, it's one of those things where just kind of helping them learn that there are people who expect you to show up and need you to show up, and you have to do that. And you know, for us, that's more the where the challenge lies than even, you know, with the academic piece for us.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yesenia, let me ask you, do you find there to be differing barriers for young women versus young men when it comes to this?
Yeah, so I think, you know, that really, you see in the data that men are going to college less on a less frequent rate than females. And I think a lot of times the immediate needs of the family are really prioritized for the male, especially. So economic needs, there could be other needs that the male is taking on, or there's also more and more the perception of this cost benefit analysis. Is college worth the cost? You've seen, especially in recent years, a lot of articles and a lot of attention put on the burden of student debt. And that really has put a lot of pressure on younger generations, especially those who are looking to, you know, loan programs, or who are looking for ways to pay for college because they, you know, are a 21st century scholar. They don't have the financial resources from their family or from other resources to pay for college. that also plays into the decision making of whether or not a college degree is worth it. And that also plays into the difference that you see with, I think, some of the gender barriers for men specifically because of that weighing. Is it better to go directly into the workforce and get a job working, at a warehouse or at a factory, or going through an apprenticeship where I can earn, $30,000-$40,000 right out of high school and get that immediate work experience? Or do I want to pay $30,000 a year to go to college when I don't know what the reward's going to be at the end?
Yeah, very, very true. And that makes a program like at St. Joe's so appealing to a lot of students if they are aware of such opportunities, or different organizations in the trades that are actually paying for students to go to school and receive certifications and the like. Jacob, I'd like to pull you in on next question here when it comes to students being prepared, but even more so students being prepared internally and understanding and knowing what they may want to do with their future. So share, if you could, a little bit about how do you help or assist students in identifying what that pathway looks like for them after high school?
Sure. I think this is a great question because I can also answer the previous question, because I think this is where some of this tension happens on the practitioner side or the classroom side, or the just working with 14 to 19-year-old students on a daily basis side. So like on the simplest form, like we as a school are measured by metrics that legislators put forward, or the commission puts forward, or the state board puts forward. One of them being graduation rate. So we're going to do everything in our power to get a kid across that graduation line, because that's the publicly facing measure that everyone pays attention to, that says, is this school being successful? So to do that, we're going to do everything in our power to make that happen. We're going to call families. We're going to call the kid. We're going to have meetings. We're going to change the kid's schedule in real time. We're going to get the kid access to some asynchronous virtual things that might work that we learned from the pandemic. We're going to get the kid into immersive learning experiences. We're going to connect the kid with neighbor community partners, right? So I'm speaking broadly because I both am trying to say what we do at PPHS and trying to say, what I've experienced in other high schools, so that I'm not only talking about what we do at PPHS here, but we're going to do everything in our power to meet with the kid, to find the kid in passing period, to seek the kid out, to call the kid, to pull the kid out of class, call the kid's parent or guardian in the hallway, and get this kid across the finish line, because we know that getting across the finish line is the first thing they need to do, the actual thing they need to do to get to that next step. Right? We know that employers are going to pay kids more money if they have a high school diploma than if they're 19-year-olds and don't have the high school diploma for the same job, right? So we want to give those kids those tools. The flip side of that is when the kid gets to that next spot, they have lost all that hand-holding that gets them across that finish line, because that next spot is not responsible for any sort of publicly facing real, headline, quantitative bullet point that's going to make the news. But we'll do everything in our power. We'll meet with kids. We'll pull up, we send grade reports home. That doesn't happen in college. It doesn't happen in a place of employment. We were going to partner with partners, to do everything in our power to do something for kids. For example, I do not think about this in terms of post-secondary readiness, and this is not why we did it yesterday. But the Supreme Court of Indiana does roving oral arguments. They had one at the University of Indianapolis yesterday. We took 35 kids to the University of Indianapolis. They heard an oral argument between the state of Indiana and Ball State over something that I don't even understand. They don't understand. But they had exposure to, Tom Fisher, the Solicitor General. They had exposure to Chief Justice Rush. They both talked about what it was like to advance in their careers. That is post-secondary readiness. Part of the things that schools do is exposure. The flip side of that is those 35 kids, and we didn't have a entrance requirement, missed core classes they need, right? They missed actual class time, seat time that they need to graduate. So how do you balance those things out? I fall on the side that exposure to people who are doing the thing that you might want to do is the best thing that we can do for kids. Right? Hearing the oral argument yesterday at the University of Indianapolis and being on a college campus, what Leon is talking about, they do it, Dr. Jackson's talking about what they do at St. Joe's, getting kids exposure to these things in the employment is the best thing we can do for kids to get them to see their future selves, right? for anyone in here who works with teenagers or has teenagers or remembers what it's like to be a teenager, like trying to convince a 15-year-old to see what they're going to do tomorrow is pretty hard. To get them to see what it's going to be like to be a 22-year-old is like impossible. So the more we can expose them to these things, right, the more flexibility schools have to expose them, the better off schools do. And I think that's something we do well at PPHS. It's something that we did well at Shortridge. It's something that, you know, I think the piece of the puzzle that we still don't have data metrics on, right, is how did COVID change what's going on here? To what Yesenia was talking about, is the decline of men going to college correlated in any way to COVID? Is it correlated in a way to people are seeing a greater reliance on concrete facing things versus abstract 4 years deferred college? In all honesty, we don't know. So I leave that to folks like, you know, Greg and those folks to think about and tell us kind of guideposts. But to answer your direct question, Adam, succinctly, is as much exposure as possible to as many possible people and things where they can ask as many questions and see themselves in their future selves in as possible is what high schools can do.
Go ahead, Leon.
Yeah, and again, to what Jacob was saying, what we try to do is when a student says, I have an interest in this area, we get them a job as closely as we can to that area. So right now we have students who say, I want to be a counselor. Now we can't make you a counselor, right? You have to go to school and all that kind of thing. But what we try to do is we try to get them to so one of our employer partners is the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. So our students get a chance to work as victim advocates and in other you know, roles that are commensurate with their experience or lack thereof. And so they get a chance to, they're going to court. They're seeing what the impact of the work that they're doing has on the client or the victim and the case. They're getting real exposure. Students who want to do IT work, they're actually working at One America, Republic Airways, these different spaces. And what we try to do also is juxtapose our curriculum against what's actually happening in the work experience. So when they come back, we ask them, you know, hey, how's work different than what we're teaching you in the class? Because we want to make sure that what we're teaching is relevant. We also invite those employers to serve as adjunct instructors because we want them very tied to the curriculum. So again, so not just that, you know, we can teach whatever we want to teach. We want it to be relevant because we want these students to be ready to step into real opportunities and or take this experience into the into classrooms if they decide to pursue their 4-year degree. The other thing that I would say, when I in particular talk to students about their career interests, I don't ask, you know, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And that's because I think that's a strange question. If you ask me today, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I have no idea. So to ask a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, what they want to do for the rest of their lives is kind of is not a fair question. And to hold them to that, you know, is also very, to me, unfair. So what I challenge them with is, hey, what problem do you want to help solve in your lifetime? Right? It could be cancer. It could be, you know, homelessness. It can be any number of things. It could be, you know, there's not enough cool sneakers out. Whatever it is you want to solve, right? There's a lot of ways that I can address or be engaged in work with cancer. I could be a counselor. I could be a fundraiser. I could be the CEO of an organization. I could be, you know, in marketing. So nothing that I do, everything that I do allows me to remain in that space if I so desire. But if I focus on what it is I want to do for the rest of my life, the moment I step out of that, I'm lost and confused. And so that's what we try not to do here. More so, what is that thing that really kind of hits home for you and you want to stay connected to, even if it's in volunteering. And so that's what we try to do here.
That's great. So, and let me say, Jacob and Dr. Jackson, exposure and to all of you, and also those tuned in, the exposure piece is huge. And that's one reason why here at Elevate, we try to get students out into the community as much as possible for that exposure piece. Conversely, Jacob, as you stated, the past 2 years, approximately 100, all 100 of our students have been able to successfully graduate from our program through, graduate high school, them being a part of our program. And it's not easy. It's a lot of work involved in it because we don't pluck the best students from the schools. We're looking at that middling student, that C-, D+ student that's down there that can use some additional support to help them on their journey. I would like to shift to Greg, if Commissioner of Higher Education, what might you see on your end as far as different careers, trades, industries that are really flourishing, or students, you're finding students flocking to, possibly even here in the state of Indiana, if there are some?
Yeah, I think there are many, and some of that varies by which part of the state, of which we're speaking. But I think generally speaking, anything related to STEM is growing immensely. We are doing our best to incentivize some of those pathways, namely through our Next Level Jobs Workforce Ready grant that we administer at the Commission for Higher Education. So that currently funds 100% tuition in about 150 high demand, high wage certificate programs that are predominantly offered by Ivy Tech Community College and Vincennes University. But Dr. Jackson, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that St. Joseph's College at Marion also is a provider for our program, maybe in a certificate or two. So, a few universities, and there are also some what we would call maybe non-traditional players in this work who offer these credentials, but might not necessarily be a college or university. So looking at things such as health and life sciences, advanced manufacturing, logistics, transportation, information technology. There are many programs there, and something really neat about the program is that maybe a student just wants to pursue that certificate now, and that's all they see themselves doing, which is fine. Most of these programs, either immediately after or later on, if the student chooses to, can then stack that into an associate degree and later go on to a baccalaureate degree if it's needed. So that's definitely one particular area, but I might add to that, more broadly speaking, we do have an educational attainment goal here in the state of Indiana that we've had for many years, and really following the lead of the Lumina Foundation, which is actually based here in Indianapolis, but has national scope, where we are endeavoring for at least 60% of adults to have some type of degree or quality credential in Indiana by 2025. And we've made some pretty strong progress on that front, where we're now up to 54%. So that's exciting, but we are still 39th in the nation, apropos of educational attainment. So one thing that we're really excited about is that Commissioner Lowry, our Commissioner for Higher Education, recently unveiled the Commission's HOPE agenda, which is an acronym that stands for Hoosier Opportunities and Possibilities Through Education. And one of the goals through that framework is for us to be a top 10 state as it relates to educational attainment and many other things. So, we're excited for that. And there are many really positive, we have some positive momentum coming out of this legislative session that I think will really boost that. We talked a lot about 21st century scholars, and there is a bill currently that actually passed the Senate yesterday. And so it's a House bill, so just needs to, there was an amendment to it that I'm sure Representative Harris, who is the author, will concur, but it will make 21st century scholars in their auto enrollment a requirement of the Commission for Higher Education. So really excited for that. FAFSA also look for that to become a default option for high school learners. And so we're really excited on those two fronts and how that's going to give us a lot of momentum moving forward in higher education access, success, and completion.
Great, thank you.
Can I just really fast piggyback on something Greg said? I think about this, almost all my work experience has been in the Indianapolis area, but I spent a semester working in the western side of the state at Northview High School in Brazil, Indiana. My in-laws live in Knox County. How we think about these things and how I just talk about exposure, it's much easier for me to expose kids to post-secondary readiness opportunities here in the Metro Indy area than it is if I were teaching at North Knox High School, where my two brothers-in-law graduated. Not to say that it's impossible, but it is, to say to Greg's point, it is a very different piece of the puzzle. And I think it's a piece of the puzzle that doesn't get enough play as we talk about these things in the Metro Indy area. And by that, I mean also encompassing what's happening at the State House.
That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that, Jacob. We have approximately 12 minutes left. I know this hour goes quick, but we're not here today necessarily to make an outline and a plan for how to address and cater to the students when it comes to post-secondary readiness, but we definitely want to invoke a conversation that will lead others to figure out and determine how they can be more both informed and involved in assisting in this. So with that, my next question, and I would ask each of you to give a very short, with now we have 11 minutes left, very short, 1 or 2 short answer to what might your organization be doing or currently doing or has done in the past to kind of assist students with being more prepared, better informed about what post-secondary readiness looks like. So what is your organization doing? What do you have in the works and the like concerning students living in these under-resourced areas to help them with post-secondary readiness in general? Yesenia, let me start with you.
Yeah, so the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust, we do have the Nina Scholars Program at IUPUI and Ivy Tech. That's a program that I strongly encourage those eligible for that program to apply for. It is a competitive process, but it is a very great program that offers financial support both for school and living, as well as supportive services to help individuals in the program through different challenges. And we also support other efforts in the Indianapolis area focused on supporting students. I will also briefly mention Ivy Tech is offering free college courses this summer to any high school student. I know we talked about exposure. They're offering a program that was just announced that will pay the tuition and books of any Indiana high school student to take summer courses. So that's an opportunity for anyone who is working with high school students to help them connect with that. And they're focusing on the core 30 that transfer to other public colleges. So that's a great opportunity as well. Not by us, but by Ivy Tech Community College.
Well, for us, this is our bread and butter, right? This is why our office exists. So I won't go into all the things we're doing, but we are strategically ensuring that exposure, exploration, and experience opportunities are articulated across all grade levels and accessible to students in all schools. And so that includes lots of things that have been mentioned here, ensuring that every high school has both CTE pathways and strong core academics, partnering with partners like Elevate Indy to make sure that we have those industry tours and supports in those spaces. And then, helping break down all those barriers that we talked about earlier when it comes to like 21st century scholars and FAFSA and, making sure that those doors stay open.
I'll add 3 very quick things. 1, we have increased our line item in our budget for field trips to take more kids, more places. 2, we'll be bringing in more in-person dual credit offerings and more in-person AP course offerings. Even if a kid doesn't go to college, data shows that exposure benefits those kids across the board. And by those kids, I mean every kid has positive correlations to those data pieces. Proud to share that we will be one of 800 schools nationwide piloting the AP African American Studies program here. And 3, to say that we will continue to partner with anyone who wants to partner with us in this space.
Anyone else care to share? I mean, you've already, like Dr. Jackson, I think everyone knows you've done a great job even already explaining your opportunities, your program, and how it operates. So I didn't know if it, between you, Yesenia, and Greg, if there's anything additional you want to add to what you're, Yesenia, you did, But Greg and Dr. Jackson, if there's anything additional you want to add to what your program, your industry, what your
Recording in progress.
That sounds like you're a DJ or something. Yeah, so we've changed the cost per credit hour for dual credit from $100 to $25 to make it more accessible. We can accept students with a GPA as low as a 1.5. And again, the charge to my team is we have to take them from basically a sophomore in high school to a junior in college, and we got two full years to do that, and we've been relatively successful with it. The other thing that I would say that any of us, the key to helping any young people or group of young people get to college or be ready is a relationship. I mean, at the end of the day, if a student trusts you and feels that they know you, they will run through a wall for you. I mean, even those ones that won't do it for anyone else. I was one of those kids. If you take the time and build the relationship with the student, you can get that kid to do whatever you need him or her to do. Now, they won't always love it, but at the end of the day, they will know where to go when they need help, and for that reason, they'll trust you. And so I think that's one of the things that we do really well is when we're out meeting with students, we do a great job of developing the relationship. It's part of the reason that our enrollment is growing about 380%. Our applications are up about 2,000%. Is when we go out, we're actually looking to build a relationship with a young person. And when you do that, they trust you, and when they trust you, they'll do whatever you ask. And so that would be what I would say is take the time, build a relationship, and everything else will come.
So with that, let me move to just the final as we close here in the last 5 minutes. And Greg, I will have you lead it off. For those guests who are tuning in today in this discussion, how can they stay informed? I'm asking all of you, Greg, I'll allow you to start, and any others that'd like to chime in. How do our guests stay informed about what this looks like for our young students, for these young adults? How do they stay informed about where Indiana is at with post-secondary readiness and different programs, as well as how to get involved if they want to be involved, engaged, and add something to the conversation concerning post-secondary readiness? Where do they begin?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think COVID-19, obviously it presented immense challenges and unveiled, many others that perhaps we weren't aware of. But I think that, following the pandemic, we've got a very unique and rare opportunity to really, dig into our educational systems and structures at the national, state, city level, and look to build, a system that's not rooted in disparities, but one that really centers on educational equity and opportunity for all. And so, from our end, we're looking to partner with community partners, schools, businesses. We're really all in this together. And so, just a few of those things I mentioned a moment ago with 21st Century Scholars automatic enrollment, which we're very excited about. That looking to pass through the State House, as well as the development with the FAFSA. We're ready to partner there, and 21st Century Scholars certainly isn't a panacea for college costs, but it's the best tool in the toolbox that we have. And when it comes to FAFSA, just last year, about $70 million was left on the table in Indiana alone, just by our students not filing that document. And that deadline for priority consideration this year is actually this week on Saturday. So please reach out to us if you're working with any students and they've not completed it yet and have questions. Our team will be happy to support.
Anyone's care to share how any of our guests tuning in can partner with them, how they can be more informed about this discussion topic on today?
I mean, for us, one of the things that we love to do is get, again, people who are doing the work in the classroom with the students. So if you want to be a guest speaker, or you want to be an adjunct, or you want to, however you feel you want to add and engage with students. We welcome the opportunity. Our students love, meeting people who are actually doing the work that they ultimately want to do. And sometimes you introduce them to things they didn't even know existed. The other thing that we have to point out is, yes, we can be getting them ready for work, but a lot of the jobs, and this came from the commission, the Commissioner for Workforce Development, a lot of the jobs that the students are getting prepared for today won't even exist in 5 or 10 years. So the real question is, how are we preparing them for jobs that aren't even created yet? Right. And so, but I again, if you're interested in being involved or engaged in anything that we're doing, again, I'm always looking for adjuncts. Yes, they are paid. I'm not looking for free work, unless you want to give it to me for free, then that's cool too. But I am looking for adjuncts. We love to have you come in and speak about your profession, engage with the students, because seeing people who look like them is very important, and people they can touch and talk to and ask questions of. That's what makes the difference. That's how students are become interested in other things. So
Go ahead.
I would just very quickly add to that. I think I saw Esther Woodson on here from Employee Indy. Employee Indy is a great partner to us. They have a portal called the Talent Bound portal, where employers can be registered and can be available for all of these experiences. And we have teachers and school employees who get into that portal when they're ready to have a workplace industry tour or invite a guest speaker. So that's one easy way folks can help, is by being added to that portal.
Mel, you read my mind. I promise you I was about to bring up Employee Indy and their Talent Bound in that portal, because exposure, once again, is key. It is huge. So if any of you that are listening in, you have an organization, a nonprofit, for-profit, a business, anything in which our students would be able to come and visit, get a tour, get some knowledge and understanding. Because what happens is that students, the more a student can visit and become comfortable in a setting that they would typically possibly be uncomfortable in, the greater chance that they will engage, dive in, and seek out opportunities within said organization or said career and the like. But we have to get them comfortable with such. So the more they can visit, the better off they would be, without a doubt. With that being said, we are up on our time. I greatly appreciate, and as we do in Elevate, we snap it up for everyone and every good thing. So I snap it up to each and every one of you for being here with us today. Thank you all the guests for being present.